Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just give it another minute or so just to get a few more people online. All right, we can go ahead and get started here. All right, so first thing on the agenda are weekly updates. We will start with Amar for PTL updates.
Yep. Just one second. I'm just sharing my screen. Okay, everybody. So this is the running slide deck. I forgot to post a link. I'll update the meeting notes with that. So this Thursday, we have a board meeting. So I thought I'd cover the content that we're going to present in the board meeting from at least the strategic side. So first up, so Magma, we wrote an NSDI paper that got accepted. Congrats, everybody. NSDI is like the premier like networking and distributed systems conference, and it's pretty hard to get a paper, especially from the industry going there. So thanks to everyone for all the contributions over the years on the Magma project. It's a pretty unique thing to have achieved. The overall synopsis, I just posted it here, is Magma is an interesting and widely used system with some unusual design choices and substantial impact. The paper is also very well written and a pleasure to read. So yeah, a lot of work went into actually even writing the paper, but the background software work was also great. When it's available to publish, we'll list it on the website as well. Congrats, everyone. Cool. So the next thing is just want to quickly summarize where I think the project has product market fit. So the way that I see this, and this is talking to a bunch of the ecosystem companies, is that almost all of the companies that are involved in the Magma or trying to build a business around it are sort of going after this one particular use case. And the reason why I think that use case is interesting is that there is a sort of shift that is happening in the telecom space, where networks are moving from sort of carrier wireless networks, where the AT&Ts of the world deployed all the infrastructure and ran it all, to a combination of carrier wireless and bottoms up market, which is, I'm calling, for lack of a better word, community wireless. This is some combination of things like enterprise wireless, like what platform, not Highway 9, even Celona, which is a fork of Magma, are all doing, and a bunch of our friends.
करते हैं बाद में बात भाई, एक कॉल चालू हो गया.
I think someone's not on mute. Okay, so and a bunch of carriers as well, right? So this is what I think is our strategically interesting place to play in, and that's unifying all the companies almost that are trying to build a business on Magma. So what's enabling this new like distributed wireless, community wireless? So the first one is that the data demand is increasing, and a lot of the frequency bands that are coming up are mid-band frequencies. So you can't like actually build like a large 5G network using macros. So there needs to be a densification plan. So the top-down carriers like the AT&Ts of the world are not able to like install stuff in small coffee shops, right? So at the end of the day, that's the challenge that like the big 5G players are having. The second thing that's sort of happening, and we play a big part here as well with the open source Magma stack, but there is CBRS spectrum. There is some spectrum, especially in like places like Germany and Japan, which are like industrially licensed, right? So that's spectrum that's not owned by like the Deutsche Telecoms of the world. There are small cells now with BiCells and Circom who are active in our community who actually can build like production grade equipment at lower costs. And then there's also Wi-Fi 6, which is a new like sort of Wi-Fi standard that makes like Wi-Fi look a lot like cellular. And then there's eSIM data plans, right? Like, so your SIM doesn't only support a physical SIM now, it can also support like electronic SIMs. So there's a technology movement that happened. Now there's a market movement that happened where, mid-band spectrum is not good for like the existing macro thing. Then there's a technology thing. And then there's a new marketplace that got created with like decentralized wireless. Helium is a big example, Pollen's an example. And then private LTE and 5G, which basically summarizes everyone else in the Magma ecosystem. So all these three things are sort of happening in parallel. And that's sort of where I think Magma has a sweet spot to play. So taking this to how this would affect our roadmap and how we should make more like focused decisions on the limited resources that we have is that we pick three efforts. So the first one is to make cellular look more like Wi-Fi. And this is the ARM work that we're doing with Magma, where we're putting Magma on an ARM board and then working with the Circoms and BiCells of the world to stick the ARM board into the radio. So you buy a single box enclosure, like your LTE looks a lot like Wi-Fi now. The second one is to achieve this, we need to have a much more prescriptive way of building our images, and sort of Docker gets us somewhere there, right? Like, so we, instead of building like Snowflake deployments with apt, we take a much stronger position on like, embracing Docker at the edge and running more of a, like Docker is a much better packaging and distribution format than, what apt is, especially with dependencies and stuff. So then you build like a bespoke implementation for like a closed box. So it's almost like firmware, but not firmware, right? So that's the model. The second thing is create an expansion friendly device, right? Like a lot of these operators who are in this space, the community wireless space, are actually trying to allow carriers to roam onto their network, right? So now to enable that, we need to build an expansion friendly device. And that's the whole like Mocken effort that, the community is interested in participating. And, I shared the brief spec last week, and we'll sort of convert that into like a project plan and tackle that. And strategically, we align with the other industry leading efforts like ORAN and the small cell forum. So, the world doesn't build like 5 different Mocken gateways. We have one reference open source Mocken gateway, and then that ties back into the other projects. And then the third one, which is more underspecified at this point, is Magma doesn't have a good Wi-Fi 6 strategy. And so just figuring out how to have a good Wi-Fi 6 strategy is an interesting thing to do. And here, I think the current leading indicator is Open Wi-Fi. So that's roughly what I was going to cover with the board. So folks have any questions on where we think the strategic direction should be with Magma, or like how we get here? Take question.
Amar, slightly diverging from here. So the data plane is currently at the kernel and the performance is restricted. We all know that we are targeting rural areas where performance is not a big requirement, but as a project, right, we should have high performance networking options, which can be achieved through DPDK kind of RTEs, right? So can be that also as part of the strategy to improve the data plane performance?
Yeah, so that is I think I have a slightly different take on that. The thing is that if you're moving to a mock-in gateway sort of a model, right? There you need, it's an aggregation device, right? So there you need the DPDK style OVS performance and stuff like that. And we definitely in the mock-in gateway spec should have some like goals in terms of performance. For the embedded form factor, which is one, where you're running on an ARM board, I think you're going to be limited by radio bandwidth, right? So I don't know if like what you're describing is a feature, I would say, more so than a strategic direction. So as part of the product line, like let's say mock-in gateway, we would need to hit high enough performance. And so whatever that means, we should like add it into the requirements of mock-in gateway.
Yeah, for embedded form factor, I totally agree. We can go with current OVS kernel approach, but Magma spans all the way till cloud, right? So cloud, as well as for high performance, you can go with big servers as well, where you can run this mobile core catering several radios. So it's another option that opens up when we support DPDK. But it's not something I will call it as a number one bullet to be taken care, but nice to have as part of roadmap.
Yeah. I think the better vehicle for the DPDK approach, more so than the access gateway, is the mock-in gateway, because that is an aggregation device. That's not going to sit at the edge, right? So that's going to sit in some Equinix or some Colo or something, and so it has to support like thousands of eNodeBs, and so there you can't do just a OVS kernel.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, like it may not be a P0 for the access gateway case, but it will definitely be like a P0 or P1 for the mock-in gateway case.
Okay. Sounds good, Amar.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, hopefully we use the same data path everywhere, and so then we get the benefits of building it once and using it many times.
Yeah. And Amar, what is the CI strategy, right? So far we have been using S1AP kind of tester, which is not a true representative, right? Looks like many players want at least semi-automated or manually tested with tier 1 or tier 2 radios. Do we have plans to have such a test framework to be set up in a common lab or through some other companies involved in Magma, right?
Yeah. So I think the way that has been playing out right now is like, for example, I know the Wavelabs folks are on the call, but Wavelabs is sort of adding that as a value add service. So like the base Magma distribution may not be like fully certified against a lot of the radios, but then the vendors come in and, you know, that's the value add that they do. Like I know even the Bicells folks do a lot of interrupt testing with Magma. So I don't know if as a core project, we can pick particular radio implementations to like qualify against. So it's almost like we validate against a reference implementation, which seems to be the S1AP tester. And then like, you know, Bicells validates against Bicells, Circom validates against Circom, and then Wavelabs has a few other radios that they validate against.
Right. Yeah, so Circom kind of companies, they are interested, right, in Magma project, and they'll be doing integration test. So it would be good if we come up with a framework where they can publish their numbers with their radio, right? Circom radio, for example. So we have initiated few discussions around this topic with ARM partners. They are willing to get involved in this kind of test. Yeah, automation would be like definitely difficult, but it's good to come up with some manual or semi-automation kind of framework from radio makers. They can actually report these numbers. So Magma should augment that. So and stay neutral to the radios, right?
That's right. So yeah, so for sure. As in, if your suggestion is we have to have a way of like aggregating this information and publishing it, yeah, 100%. whether we should pick a couple of implementations of radios to actually pre-qualify, I'm not so sure. But yeah, definitely, as in if Circom's already doing the tests and Bicel's already doing the tests, we should figure out a way to get them to give us the numbers or at least publish it from a neutral standpoint.
Yeah, just to accommodate them. Yeah, not biased with any radio from Magma
That's right.
project point of view. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so the concrete ask that I have of the TSC here is that I briefly spoke to Max as well, is that we should make a strong pivot towards preferring Docker-based images for the edge as well, and make that real, because most of our ecosystem partners are trending in that direction, and it seems to be the way that we would want to support this embedded form factor as well. And so we try and see what that means to our existing like app related efforts for maintaining and upgrading Magma.
Yeah, Amar, we are working with our partners who make this embedded platforms. So it's really convenient to bring up the AGW using this Docker services.
Yep.
So we have also taken that path to support the partners through the Docker images. That's easier for us.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I think I spoke to the same set of people also.
Yeah.
So does the TSC have any objections towards working with TNG on trying to prioritize efforts in that direction?
I have no objections, but I have a question. I'm actually not sure what the current Dockerized access gateway state for the 1.8 release is. So in the upcoming 1.8 release, is it in beta state? Is it productively useful? Is it not yet there? I'm not sure what our statement on that is, or what the current state is.
So our CI is regularly building the access gateway Docker images. We are just not testing that because that is just for building. We will not be able to use because of the kernel restrictions. So yeah, but we are building it. So CI is working, and we have to come up with a proper deployment method for that.
Yeah, and if they are supported, they should be tested in the releasing process. And I don't know, government or is it planned to test Dockerized deployment also in the releasing process?
So for 1.8 from ARM point of view, it's just a manual test. So Shubham or Tim can update on the x86 side whether it has any CI test already running.
So no, there is no CI test running for Docker images. No, we don't do that because I know that even if we are using the Docker images, like we have CI build Docker images, that will not work because of the kernel on our GitHub Actions is different. It's not 5.4. So anyhow, we are just building it. They will never work.
Okay. So yeah, there's a lot to do, and maybe we should try to make it explicit what the Dockerized access gateway state for 1.8 should be. So if is it beta, is it general availability, or and then we should work towards that. I agree that focusing on Dockerized deployments could reduce a lot of overhead and make it easier and better.
Yeah, from ARM point of view, we are calling it as alpha quality because we have not done any extensive testing. We are relying on SRS RAN test. From x86 point of view, there are S1AP tests already available, part of the CI, right? But S1AP test is again containerized, but it's manually run, I think. So once it is automated and CI is set up and all the test cases are covered, then only we can advance the quality. On x86 front, I'm not sure, maybe Meta team can confirm on that.
Yeah, at least my understanding of talking to people, I think like Circom and all of these guys who are trying to test it out with Docker, is that they're calling it alpha at best, but they're all testing it with whatever whatever their existing test infrastructure is, but they're testing the Dockerized version, not the app version. So that there are issues with upstream and what they're producing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so we can focus on making our Docker deployment more stable. We don't have a proper deployment script. We just use simple Docker compose, and that is also very tricky. We have to do multiple things before that. So we can work on the building the Docker images, the CI part, and the CD deployment part. So that part is neglected, yeah, but we can focus more on that.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So Max and Shubham, is there a way for us to figure out what are the next steps? Maybe if we can, someone needs to go and understand the state of the world, I guess. And
I think we have already I think a deployment of the Dockerized Access Gateway, or we have tried it, and so we could try to sum up the state and work on that. And Shubham, maybe we can sync it also. Govind, maybe we can plan a meeting tomorrow.
Sure.
Kind of a kickoff for the renewed focus on that.
Sure, Max. At a high level, what I'm thinking is we have to have a build job for Docker, building HW images. And next step is to automate the SRS RAN test with Dockerized image. And third one is the S1AP tester. And the last one is upcoming 5G test that should also run along with the Docker. These are the 4 high-level test coverage that we should have in CI to endorse.
Yeah, Govind, SRS RAN, meaning we have our S1AP tester, right?
Correct, Yogesh. I'm thinking in ARM point of view as well. So we are moving slowly. We just started in this project, right? So enabling S1AP, we need some time to fix the issues there. SRS RAN is working already manually, so it's a matter of automating it. So that's why I suggested that. We can discuss if it is easy to enable S1AP on ARM. We can align both x86 and ARM with the same test that exists.
Yeah, meaning I would say if it takes little time, but it's okay to align both with the same this thing, right? Same benchmark for both.
Sure. I think we need some offline discussion about the test coverage, but high level this is the thought process, right? SRS RAN, S1AP, and 5G, yeah, and build jobs for Docker.
Yeah, so I think Max, you can include me as well.
Sounds awesome. So, and also I think Yogesh, you guys are planning to in the 1.9 timeframe test the 5G Docker things also better, right? So that aligns with as well.
Right, meaning we have done till a sanity level just to make sure nothing is broken. But yeah, extensive testing we are planning for 1.9.
Sounds good. So the other thing, Shruti, I don't know if you know who from Open Wi-Fi or can you introduce me to someone from Open Wi-Fi? I'm not sure who is, I know a bunch of people who were there in Open Wi-Fi when I was in Facebook have left.
I can try to find out, even I'm not super connected, but yeah, I can take an action item there.
Okay, that'll be great. Yeah. So if we have, because of the Wi-Fi 6 story. So ideally there also we want to figure out how Magma can manage Open Wi-Fi, and maybe Evgeny might also have ideas because he ported the Magma D to Open Wi-Fi.
Sure. And Amar, going back to the strategy proposal, we have buy-in from existing deployers of Magma in this direction, right? Just thinking of executing on that strategy, how much people power do we have at the present?
Yeah, I think my sense just almost everyone is doing. Okay, so which part of the strategy? The mock-in gateway, I think everyone wants to do that. So that part is pretty clear. And then, and ARM also wants to support like the OVS DPDK stuff once they're done with the OVS stabilization. So the throughput side also has some, supporters. The thing with the Docker, and then, ARM is already working with Circom and Bicels to embed the Magma into the enclosure. And once we have a couple of vendors, it'll become easier to add more. So I think those two threads are pretty well funded. I think the Docker thing is still very fragmented in the sense everyone is doing their own like flavor of that. And I think that's a side effect of us not taking a strong enough position upstream. And everyone has their own version of Dockerized deployment, like Freedom5, Circom, like I guess even ARM. And so there's interest, but I don't know if they would be committing engineering resources because they already have something that kind of sort of works. But the important takeaway, at least for me talking to everyone, is like no one's using the app version. Or people are migrating away from that.
I think you could make a case that this would. I think you could make a case that Dockerizing in a shared Docker image would improve security since it reduces the number of different groups working on it, allows us to share resources.
Phenomenal. Yeah, no, that's right. That I agree.
Right. So I think the alignment we need is translating the strategy into the roadmap and like prioritizing. So if everybody is on the same board of like prioritizing this over other things listed on the roadmap, or like Freedom5, Wave Labs, ARM in this meeting, and inviting other folks, Circom and Bicels, to be part of the TSC meeting so we can be aligned on the roadmap and the execution, that would really help.
Yeah, definitely. How do you get
like discussing the strategy like and the roadmap as separate? Like probably we need to, and this is the process to do it, I believe. The discussion has to be together.
That's right. So I would maybe restate that slightly differently, is like, let's align on the strategy with the board first. And then once we have the agreement from everyone, then we go to the roadmap and start like figuring out how the items in the roadmap align with the strategy. Like this is like a two-phase commit, right? Like we figure out that everyone is behind the strategy, and I've socialized this. Like I've asked like Bicels and everyone else to attend the TSC, but I don't think I'm getting participation. But none of this is a surprise to those companies, at least.
That's good. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
So Amar, on the Docker image, right? So are we good with the current? It works as you said. So are we going to advance that and break the Docker services into stateful and stateless, right? Come up with a good combination of services running in different pods, right? Those kind of developments. Is it expected? Some company is working on that. Whether that needs to be part of the roadmap. So ARM is not going to contribute to that, breaking the existing Docker services into several of them based on the functionality to scale up or down. But any other company like Freedom5 or anybody is doing that work?
No. So for the Docker stuff, it's basically what I think, like the help that we get from Shubham and the TNG folks. Like we're not gonna, because they all have some basic version of whatever they're doing working, and I don't see them contribute right now. But the goal there is for us to try and have a stronger position towards that, so we align all the other companies downstream.
Okay.
Sounds good. That's all I had, Kendall. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Amar. So Lucas, I know that you had a conflict. So did you want to go ahead and give your update real quick before you had to drop?
Thank you for being mindful of that. I've rescheduled, but I appreciate getting this time. I have these items that the TSC should know about. First of all, a high priority in the roadmaps closing known vulnerabilities. We are close to under control on Dependabot alerts. However, the Go stuff has quite a few items open. Apart from that, things are in pretty good control. And we should consider assigning developer resources for Golang packages. What are people's thoughts?
We are in the Go ecosystem, we are already working on updating dependencies. I think there's this list includes the Helm thing, the Helm server item thing. The person that was last week on vacation is still on vacation, and so I don't have an update on that. But yeah, I think we should try to get them updated, and I think we can support on that. I think one of the reasons why Go is the biggest contributor is Go is the easiest to identify dependencies in, and I think the unknowns are also a big problem.
I agree. I think the C++ is significant, and we're not at a point yet where we can target that, but yeah, I think it's coming. Cool, great. So next item, Aswin suggested documentation on secure deployment. I think it's a really good idea, and had been looking into it. And before going further, I want to investigate consensus on adding this to the roadmap. It may be that, yeah, go ahead, please.
To which release? So do you ask for consensus for 1.8 or later?
It would be probably 1.8.
I think we are right now in the phase for 1.8 to just get every blocker out of the way and get it released. Maybe the or get the branch done. If it does not block branching, it might not add another blocker. But
yeah, pardon me, I misspoke. I would leave it for 1.9 because I think that we want to not do anything to slow down 1.8.
Yeah, then I think it's probably helpful, especially if we start focusing on Dockerized deployment and have less deployments overall, or less supported deployments at some point. I think it's good to have better documentation for that.
Sounds good. So I imagine there's no need for a vote unless somebody wants to throw a flag. Good to go. Next, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
No, all good. Yeah.
Okay. So next, to let people know, I'm auditing secrets in the code base, and you'll see evidence of that around. And I needed to find somebody to help me understand opportunities for default password and secrets to leak into the production NMS. Is there somebody who would be a good resource to talk about that?
I can connect you with someone.
Good, thank you. Lastly, there's a lot of ongoing work on this disclosure, subscriber keys stored in memory on the host. To return to the underlying issues, everybody's memory is fresh. The issue is that, I'll just give people a minute to read this text. And then I will hand the mic to Shruti, who is leading work on addressing this.
Thanks, Lucas. Varun is the person actually working on this, so I will let him give the update on what's the progress on this.
Hi everybody. I'm Varun. I'm an intern with and Shruti is my manager. I actually wanted to share my screen. That would be easier maybe to explain. Thank you. Oh, I'm not able to share my screen. Okay, just give me 1 second. Geez, I'm sharing on. Okay, I'll have to just rejoin the call. Just give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Sure. So while Varun is trying to reconnect, the high level plan is to use a service running in the cloud to do on-demand authentication for users, and Varun has already merged some code in the master to enable that service. Like the service was already existing but not tested, and he did that, but there's still something pending. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So I guess you read what was on the GitHub issue. I'll probably just go over it again very quickly. So subscriber DB is basically Magma's local version of HSS, and it supports the SXA authentication information request and answer. And the basic idea is that the orchestrator streams all the IMSI information down to subscriber DB, and this includes all the auth keys and whatever is the response, or I mean just all the auth keys, and it's all stored inside the subscriber DB, which is inside AGW. So when a UE wants to attach, the MME is going to send an authentication information request. Subscriber DB computes and sends the answer back to MME. But this is not good. Why? Because the issue was that the keys are stored inside an SQLite database inside the AGW. And an attacker that can get access to this AGW can get access to the keys, and subscribers may be compromised. Okay, so what do we do? How do we fix this? What I've been working on is that there is another service called Eps Authentication, and this runs on the orchestrator. And this guy now stores all the keys and creates now just responds to any authentication information with an authentication answer. And currently we have a flag, and this flag, when set to false, basically will do whatever was going on before, which is the subscriber DB, just the streaming from the orchestrator to subscriber DB and everything on the AGW. But with this flag is called cloud subscriber DB enabled, and when we set it to true, we have that we'll have that the orchestrator does the authentication for the UEs. Okay, so currently this is done as in the sense that I have tested that on a UE attach, it can go through the AGW, the authentication can happen in the orchestrator, and the UE can successfully attach. What we are also now doing is that when this flag is set to true, the orchestrator or the streaming of the auth keys to the subscriber DB should be set to should not happen anymore. But there's this one issue that which we're still figuring out, is which we have an idea on how to resolve, is that the subscriber DB, like mobility D, was dependent on subscriber DB to get APN information. And now if we just stop the streaming from the orchestrated subscriber DB, this cannot happen anymore. So our idea to sort of resolve this is that after the authentication is done and an update location is sent from the MME to the orchestrator, With the update location answer, we also send this APN information. And this APN information will then be, APN information from orchestrator to MME. And the APN information is then just written to an SQLite server at the subscriber DB. And mobility D can, continue as before. It gets the relevant information that it needs. And right now, what I'm working on is writing per subscriber APN specific data into subscriber DB store when the MME receives update location. So this is what I'm currently working on. And lastly, I want to say that this is right now we only look at 4G, like LTE authentication, and enabling 5G is not in the scope of my summer internship, but it should be doable hopefully afterwards. Yeah, that's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, just one small issue. I will not say it's an issue, meaning it's just like, overall attach rate will come down with this process, because, we have to go to orchestrator and then get the information back. Of course, from security perspective, it is good. But what happens is, the overall attach rate goes down.
Right.
So that's a problem. And, especially when we have some e-node B restarts or something, when everybody is trying to attach, then it ends up in a lot of retransmissions and failures.
Correct.
So this is one challenge which I can see.
Yeah, so correct. That's I agreed. And what is also a part which I did not mention in this presentation, and it's a stretch goal for me, is to make sure that to have a few authentication vectors here, like not just each time. So what we plan to do is that maybe have like 5 to 10 authentication vectors cached inside the AGW. So rather than go to the orchestrator each time, so at a time we can have 10 authentication vectors cached inside the AGW, and for the next 10 attached requests, like say to the same AGW, we don't need to go to the orchestrator those 10 times. So that should alleviate this issue to some extent, but I agree that it is more often than before. It will still be more often than before.
Okay, yeah.
Is there a risk that partners who have already deployed their own code would have difficulty performing this upgrade, given that it's kind of an architectural change?
I am not sure, but because so far it should just be a flag that on the network configuration somebody needs to switch. Like if they like, I'm not sure if I'm answering right, maybe Shruti can help, but what from what I understand is that with the latest changes, like if they have, I guess, the latest source code and everything, all they would need to do is switch a flag to get this services going. But I'm not sure if I understood the question.
That's right. So Lucas, these changes would be available in most likely 1.9, like considering Varun is still completing the end-to-end testing. So anybody who upgrades to the next release of 1.9 or on the master, once Varun's changes are all in, would have the code when they upgrade to the new version of the orchestrator and access gateway. And the flag is
thank you.
stored for NMS, so they can turn it on. The goal is, considering that this addresses the 4G authentication call flow, the goal is to still keep the flag disabled by default. So anybody who wants to make the switch would have to actively enable it.
So I don't want to use too much of the group's time right now, but I had one other question maybe to discuss offline about the security of the flag and whether or not it would preclude attackers from setting it and then getting all that information regardless of what the default option was. Maybe an offline conversation.
Right. I think the security of the flag is because the flag can be enabled on the orchestrator side. Yeah, I think it's worth a
it.
thought exercise. Yes, let's discuss offline, and we can
Thank
document
you.
that.
Thanks.
Great. So let's quickly move on to the next weekly update. Do we have any release updates?
Yeah, I can quickly share the updates. Can you see my share?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is based on the last week's 1.8 release meeting. So most of the blockers are resolved. Magma CA is close to stable. And we have only one pending issue. The LT integration test is failing. Looks like Ankit has fixed it already. He updated the nodes. So we have to see whether it's all green in Magma CI. And the next one is about the ARM Docker build job enablement. Tim is actively working on it. So this work is still pending. Mostly it'll get completed in a week. And
Yeah, I'll have a pull request this week, and you'll be able to see the ARM workflow in GitHub Action this week. Yes.
Thanks, Tim. Yep. And Wavelabs have one PR related to QFI feature, and that needs to be merged before we cut a branch. And a new CA job needs to be created to host the AGW Docker image in Magma Artifactory. Again, that's with Tim to complete it.
Govind, with the previous item, this PR is pending for a long time now, right?
Yeah.
And the reason behind this pending is I think the obvious versioning name. It's been dragging too long. So I'm just wondering how we can speed it up.
Max
Yeah,
has set up a
there's-
meeting actually tomorrow to discuss this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
can
think
pull you into the
yeah, I think we are going back and forth with the PR. It's better to have a good call and close it. Look like a more naming convention, right? Close it and move on, right? Because
it's more than naming convention. There is a different pull request open that fixes a bug in OBS that is not yet merged, but that causes other problems. And there's more. I will put you into the conversation.
yeah,
Sure.
okay, yeah. I think let's try to close it sooner than later.
Yep. Yeah, so Tim is working on creating a CA job to host the AGW Docker image. And then he need to create a directory for 1.8 release, which is pending, and the Artifactory path have to reflect in relevant files. That's again with Tim. So on the documentation front, there's a lot of work in progress. Wavelabs have submitted documentation PR. From ARM side also, we are ready in documentation point of view. And Freedom 5 want to merge the domain proxy related updates. So hopefully that will also get merged in a week. So I think we are in a good shape. Once we resolve this OVS versioning issue, all the other issues are very straightforward. I think there is no other dependencies. So that's it on the 1.8 release side. Thanks. I'm done, Kendall.
I think Kendall has network connection issues.
Yep. Sorry about that. My
you're
internet
back.
just went out. Had a horrible time. I'm sorry. Where
Next
we
would
just
be DevOps.
okay?
Tim and Shubham.
Yeah, I can take that one. Hey guys, quick DevOps update. So we've been working on the documentation. So TNG, Shubham, and the whole community has been contributing to it. We have 3 pieces left before we want to push it to production. So we agreed that we're going to push a main documentation to Confluence. So right next to the meeting notes and everything. And most of these links, if the documentation is too technical, it will just be a link to a GitHub wiki page. So for example, for the release process, you'll see it on Confluence, but to see the actual documentation of it, you're going to have to click on the link. It will redirect you to GitHub wiki. This morning, we kicked off the new registry project. So as you know, we're moving all the infra from Open Infra to Linux Foundation owned, and that goes with the registry. So we're moving from an on-premise product with the JFrog license to a SaaS solution with LF. We kicked off the project, and we're gonna create tickets for LF so they can configure the registry, and then we can do the switch. We are actively working on ARM CI. The expected release of it is this week. The documentation has been done and showcased to the ARM and its partner. Everyone was happy with it. The current status is the build script works on Graviton, but the Ansible script that runs on the GitHub Action node is currently broken, and I'm trying to fix it so I can push the whole pipeline. We are actively also working on the build redesign. We met last week, we're meeting tomorrow. We have a few ideas, and we're trying to do like a design doc so we can plan ahead the redesign of the build process. We're also working with OAI CI. We're waiting for OAI people to get back from holidays so we can meet up and show them how to integrate their solution to our Firebase CI solution. And the last but not least, the AMI workflow has been repaired. The new images have been pushed to AWS. Thanks, Shubham, for that. And I think AWS is currently scanning for security issues. I guess Lucas and Shubham will give us an update when it's done. That's pretty much for the update. Just a side note, I've heard everyone talking about Docker and how we want to move forward to a more Docker system for the AGW. I'll go ahead and create a few tasks for us so we can improve our current CI process, because right now we just build push images, but we don't test them. So just create a few tickets, do sanity checking of those images, at least before pushing them to the registry. That's it for the DevOps update. If you have any questions, let me know. Cool, thanks. Back to you, Kendall.
Thanks. For the testing update, that one was asynchronously on Slack. So any updates for there, please look at the Slack TSC channel. Next, outreach. I don't think there are any major outreach updates unless, Shubham, if you know of any.
So I just had to like give video for the 23rd of July session. So I've just given them the video, and 23rd of July, they will just play like Magma 101 session on that event. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Great. We'll go to C++ migration. Rashmi.
Yeah, thank you, Kenda. As part of C++ migration on S1AP module, we started migrating C structures to protobuf structures. So as a part of migrating, like it involves a change in every line. So it sometimes we'll be accessing and sometimes setting the values. So have different APIs as defined or auto-generated by the CPP protobuf library. So you're using that and we're modifying it. So as part of that one, like during the execution of the unit test case, there were several memory leaks were found, because as a part of using the protobuf library, it for nested structure, it allocates the memory, but we have to take care by clearing the UE context. So such a leaks were there we found and we fixed it. And next thing like we did was the end-to-end test cases. So it all works fine, but there is one memory leak is there, we need to work on it. And as a part in the MME app and NAS module, we started with the NAS. In the NAS, we almost like we converted 62 files to CPP, and there are many more folders are there. Like Vikram is working on that one. And in S1AP module, we have converted the C files to CPP. Yeah, that's all on the CPP migration.
Thank you. Basil effort, Nils?
Yeah, hello everybody. So currently we are working on creating a Magma Debian package with Bazel, run the LTE integration test versus the Bazel-defined services, and run the LTE integration test with Bazel. A larger update I will give next week when there's more time. That's it.
Thank you, Nils. NMS, Thomas?
I think we can
skip
drop
that one.
that. Yep.
Okay, Yogesh, any data path updates?
Nothing from my side.
Nothing from mine either.
All right, roadmap update, Max?
Yeah, there was some movement on the roadmap. There are several items that are marked as planned for 1.8 that might not yet have had sufficient visibility in the releasing meeting. And like, I think the domain proxy side was not yet discussed or visible in the releasing meeting. I think there should be some interaction that everything that has release target 1.8 gets discussed and checked in the releasing process, that it's also on track and that it matches expectations. And my assumption right now is that everything that has a release target that is empty or a data can be excluded from these discussions. So if you think there's something that needs to be included in 1.8 or that should be on the roadmap, maybe added here or discussed with the releasing team. Yeah. But that was the 2-minute update. Or
Thank you, Max.
Update.
I know we only have 2 minutes left. Gustavo, your agenda item is next. Do you want to go ahead and go through it for this meeting or move it to the next meeting?
It's very small patch I've made. I think you can discuss right now. I very recently started to work developing some extensions to Magma for security and network help. And right now I have the necessity to have some kind of extension loading mechanism because I like to avoid to change the source code for those extensions. So I wrote a small code, isolated code to this kind of plugin handling. And I asked for the approval of this kind of mechanism in Magma. Let me share the screen here. So this moment, okay. Okay, so the idea is to avoid to change anything in the source code when you try to work on those integrations and extensions. So for this, let me show the example. The idea is just to have an extension with the triggering functions like UE attach, UE detach, the subscription of a new node B, for instance, and those functions will be triggered in those events. And I wrote this code here to as a sketch. For what I'm like to propose. So I don't know if what you think about this approach on Magma to have plugins.
I think we should try to have a technical review of that. So I'm not able to grasp that right now from seeing it. And yeah, from that's all I can see from just seeing that code. Has someone already gone through that code, or has someone already an understanding?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
My question in the room for everyone was: is there someone already that already had looked through that pull request, and is someone has someone already an opinion on that code?
No, it's not a pull request yet, because as a new feature, I was thinking the approach was to present to this committee, but I can make a pull request first.
No, I mean your set of changes. You linked this set of changes in your proposal, and
yes.
I was asking if someone already reviewed or looked at that proposal. But I think that's a prerequisite. I think so. Just my opinion, but plugin structure sounds like something that could be beneficial, but that has advantages and disadvantages that we could discuss. But I missed to pre-read the proposal in time. Maybe someone can commit to review that proposal. So like an assignee, is someone from the TSC interested in doing that, in taking that? Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
So I will. There was someone speaking up.
Yeah, this is Yogesh here, Max. I can also jump in. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's assign both, and we will give feedback. We will discuss that, and we will discuss implications, and we will come up with an answer. I don't think we have an answer right now. Anything else to add to that? Or...
Right. That we're actually out of time now, so go ahead and close the meeting. We can add this to next agenda for next week if we want. All right. So everyone have a great rest of your day and a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.